how to record notes from the Ableton Push or just from Ableton or any DAW MIDI notes into the Elektron Syntakt. One of my viewers asked me in the comments in my Ableton Boss video if it's possible to record MIDI notes direct from Ableton to Syntatkt, and I actually wasn't sure because I hadn't tried it before. So I decided to look into it and I found a solution. Are you curious? Are you asking, why would anyone even do that? Well, I have some thoughts about that. So get into this. Ready, set, let's go. Hey there, I'm Sky Deep, a music producer, multimedia artist, and lover of community. On this channel, I perform music jams, give tutorials, and sometimes I just share creative approaches about my process as a music producer for various types of productions. If you enjoy or get value out of any of my content, I hope you'll consider staying connected with me via some of the options I share in the description, or maybe even a thumbs up. This is very encouraging for me to know when I'm actually supporting people in some way. I just want to demonstrate this alternate way of how to capture MIDI notes into the Syntatkt and share ideas why somebody might even want to do it like that. So why? One reason why is because it adds velocity sensitivity because the Syntatkt trig buttons don't actually have that ability. It also offers you a larger range of notes to play. Because the Ableton Push as a controller has scales mode and has 64 pads to already work with, then you can actually have a much wider range than the few buttons that are on the Syntatkt. I still have a lot of fun playing direct on the Syntatkt, but there are some limits. I can't do anything velocity sensitive, and that's a bit frustrating for me. Plus, they're a little bit more clicky, and I tend to like softer, gummier pads. Another reason, I can change my mind on certain sounds. So in Ableton, I can draw everything in, and I can use some of the synths inside the program, but then later I may decide, actually, I'd much prefer to hear how that sounds on the Syntatkt. Or blend it with the Syntatkt. So I can dial in and draw my ideas. Even if I don't have the Syntatkt with me, I could be on a train somewhere and maybe I'll have as my laptop. I can sketch out an idea and then I can bring it back to Syntatkt later. Another reason, it's nice when I record direct to the Syntatkt in case I want to switch everything over to that box alone. Maybe I'm switching over to playing a live set and I want to do it all on my hardware. Maybe I don't want to bring my computer. Then I can just layer some things up, stack them up and treat them and play and jam with them live. A quick recap of connecting your hardware. One way to connect is using a MIDI interface and coming in and out of that direct to your Syntatkt. And then, of course, Push is connected, or my controller, your controller, is connected to the computer via USB. Another way is if you only have USB, you can just use the USB over MIDI with Syntatkt, but then that would be using a whole different situation. Just as far as, you have a lot more options, but as you see, you get to use less cables. So that's kind of cool and less gear. We'll talk more about how that's working in a minute. When you are connected via MIDI, direct from a controller to the Syntatkt, the most important thing is that you have to have the right MIDI channel selected, okay? And, because each of these, Syntatkt has a lot of channels going on. We have 12, actually even more than that if you're counting the effects channel. So each of those has its own 1 through 13 selection. So what you need to do is you need to select MIDI channel 14. That's the channel that you need your controller or Ableton to speak to. And then that way, that's considered the auto channel. It auto selects. So whichever setting you're on the Syntatkt, whether you're on, once you switch to channel 2, anything you hit from Ableton would be on channel 2. If I change to channel 3, well, actually, let me set that up in the software. So I don't want to get it twisted the wrong way. So looking here in Ableton, I am on my Syntatkt channel, and as you see right now, it's accepting all inputs. I don't want it to do that, or actually, yes, I do want it to do that. All inputs is fine because I'm only working with the Syntatkt here, but what I do need is I need to send to channel 14. So if you're looking over here, right now it's set to channel 1, and that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I want. I want to send to channel 14. Because if I send to channel 1, then I'm only going to send to channel 1 here. All right, so there you see it. Okay, and this is my external MIDI instrument that I'm using in Ableton, but in general, you don't always have to do it that way. Just as long as you're sending MIDI info out somehow, so that could be from your controller or whatever, as long as you're sending to channel 14. All right, so that should change things. Okay, yes. All right, so we're looking here and we have, you can see here on the Syntatkt that I have channel 3 highlighted. Let's go to channel 4. That happens to be the sound that I have going on there. It's kind of on the quiet side at the moment. That's okay, just to show you. All right, so now I'm on a whole nother channel. You get the picture. You get the picture. Yeah. So that is because I selected auto channel. It switches every time the way that I want. All right. Now, back here on the slides. So let's talk about this step by step. All right. We're going to test our MIDI connection. We're going to pick a sound, whatever that sound would be. So maybe you're recording something direct on an Ableton instrument or something like that, or maybe you just want to, you know, play into Syntatkt, that's fine. But what I am going to need to do is do a little bit of recording. So then I'm going to record the MIDI clip in Ableton. The bonus tip here is for fixed velocity on Ableton Push, you hold down the Shift button and then you hit the accent button. And then you have a fixed velocity. But in this case, I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm just going to keep it velocity sensitive because that's a vibe. And lastly, you know, I would say it's a good idea to set a loop for playback in the DAW. All right, so now we're in Ableton and we're gonna go ahead and try and set this up. So we look here, even though I can set fixed length and do recording direct from the push, sometimes I like to just press record in with my mouse, like right in the program, just so that I'm working with both hands at the same time. But yeah, if I want to do it this way, I can go to session view, and it's already on fixed length. I believe I set my fixed length for, yes, 2 bars. And then I'm going to switch over to session view as soon as I press record. So record. Yeah, so it's in there. I take it out of record mode, so it just plays back. And that's what we have for now. But the question is, how do we get it into the Syntatkt? So yeah, if we are looking back at my notes from before, we already picked our sound. We already recorded the MIDI clip into Ableton. And now it's about setting loop playback in the DAW. So it's already looping here in session view. But if I wanted to switch over to arrangement view, then I could set a loop there. But we'll keep it here for now. And now this is the trick. On the Syntatkt, let's move over to the next slide where it says a little bit what we do next. Oh, and actually, one thing I forgot to point out the importance that we test our MIDI connection before we even record. So let's just take a quick look-see back at Ableton, and you will notice that when I'm pressing any notes, whatever, like because I'm sending notes also from the Syntatkt to Ableton, we can see up here in the right corner that there's some MIDI notes happening, kind of both ways, actually. But then here we can see that MIDI notes are happening. So just in case you're ever not sure what's going on, you can check there to see. All right, now back to how to receive in the Syntatkt. I think it's a best practice to go ahead and turn on the click, the metronome in Syntatkt. You have to do that by pressing Funk and then the pattern button. So it says here for me that the click is on, but sometimes I want to double check the settings. Yeah, that I like to see that there's a pre-roll of some sort, because sometimes, you know, I want to hear the click, you know, before it actually starts recording. But in this case, I think it may start recording immediately because, again, Ableton is leading here. So let's try it out. I could be wrong, so, you know, sometimes you just have to experiment. And notice we hear the click, but we don't hear any notes on that track because we haven't recorded them in here yet. So that's what we're about to do now. And, you know, we need to set our pattern length appropriately. So I did 4 bars over here. And so I think we need the full 4 over here, also on Syntatkt. So I'm holding down the funk and I'm hitting page a few times. So, you know, it was just like funk and page just to switch over. And then I hit the page a few times in order to get all 4 lights lit up so that I have, you know, use of the full pattern. It's just kind of straightforward. And now let's see if we have the right length. Let's see. We're going to watch these flashing buttons. Yes. Right. All right, just double checking. If you're new to the device, then yeah, that's how you can follow along and count along with Ableton and see if the cycle is the right cycle for you. Now, here we go. I am going to now just run the Ableton loop for a while, like let it do a full revolution, and then, so I'm gonna hold record and then press play so that I can get into live record mode. And I don't know if it's important to do everything in a, you know, good time, but I'd like to wait just until the bar before I'm ready to record to actually engage the live record mode. So I'm gonna do that, and let's go for it. So we're playing. Here we go, holding. All right. Now I've stopped Ableton, and I'm going to play just from the Syntatkt. But first I'm going to make sure that my tempo on Syntatkt is the same as Ableton. So in Ableton I have 138. Syntatkt, I will change that. And I forgot, where's my tempo? There it is. Changing to 138. There that is. So that first open note kind of didn't last as long as I expected, and so I wonder why. It's a little bit more staccato than I anticipated. So I'm look back at Ableton and look at my MIDI notes and say, okay, it wasn't exactly the cleanest run. So I have a short one there, and then I have this long one. I prefer the long one. Let me go ahead and get rid of that short one and see if I can't run the recording again over it. But because this is a mono synth, these overlaps are not gonna really do so well for me. So let's see. Do a little bit of cleaning. So I'm gonna let it go one full round on its own first. Here we go. All right, let's try that, see how it sounds. That's a little bit better. Yeah, but the whole point is it's all here. So when I go back into step record mode or step mode, you can see when I hit the page button, each page. So this is the first bar, second bar, third, and fourth. The overview is basically that at this point, you can do whatever you want. You can add automations, you can, dirty it up or jam with it in the Syntatkt. Yeah, the world's your oyster. You can do what you want. So thanks for the question, the person that wrote in the comments. Thank you very much for that. Because it gave me something to look into, and I think it's pretty useful in certain scenarios. So there you have it. You can indeed record notes into Ableton Live and get those MIDI notes into the Syntatkt. Show some love to the channel if you like, and however you like. But it would be great if you could check out what I shared in the description too. Whatever you choose, it'll really help. I'd love it if you could join me on Discord too. It's fun. We can share ideas, collab, exchange feedback, come say hey. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you on the next round.